Hey, we're in Houston. I thought we were going to Cancun.
Now, that would be unfortunate. What dear?
Flight attendants, disarm doors for arrival. Cross check. Stand by for on call.
Senator, thank you for everything you've done since Uvalde. Thank you for everything you've done since Uvalde. All those podcast episodes must have raised a lot of money for you.
Just yesterday, I tried to pass the most significant school safety bill that's ever passed.
Why did you vote against the
Your party
bill?
objected to it.
You tried to pass it? What work were you doing? How did you have time when you were recording a shit ton of podcast episodes?
You should ask why the Democrats objected to doubling the number of police officers.
You should ask why you don't know how to do your job without referring to other politicians.
15,000 new mental health.
You should fix your tie too from your collar.
Listen to the man.
Let him fly in peace. I'm fine. When children can get buried in peace, then we.
Do you know the facts at all, or are you just going to engage with?
No, I know the facts. Do you know any of the names of the Uvalde victims?
I do, and ask why Chris Murphy objected and stopped the biggest school safety bill that could ever pass.
You list any other names, but you again.
But you don't know. You don't care about the facts. You're a partisan. That's okay.
You're not a partisan.
Or not. Booing him works just fine, which is what this crowd did when he touted his Securing Our Schools Act of 2022 and said one of the most effective ways to prevent mass shootings is to, quote, enhance security at vulnerable targets. Jeers work. Students doing so in between obviously bringing up the tragedy that occurred at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. Dope. Cruz would go on to say, look, if you have a solution to stop the deranged evil murderers, I'd love to hear it. My solution is to throw them in jail, stop them before they commit these crimes. There are some that we won't know beforehand. And sarcasm isn't really my thing, but to this point, I wanted to be like, oh, never thought of it that way. In response to more shouting from the audience, Cruz continued, but look, instead, you guys can sing Kumbaya with them and hope they'll just stop. But what you're proposing doesn't work. The crowd applauded when a person from the audience then yelled, 18-year-old boys don't need an AR-15. What more can I say?
Now listen, I have been a conservative my entire life. Yep. I have never met anybody, any conservative who wants to ban contraceptives. As I noted, Heidi and I, we have 2 little girls. I'm very glad we don't have 17.
7 years later.
As the fight over abortion rights heats up, the governor of Mississippi won't rule out a ban on contraception.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Let's be clear. Conservatives still haven't banned contraception yet, but they haven't done anything to help or support or to back protecting medication and devices designed to prevent pregnancy either. Conservative senators will have a chance now, and there's really no middle ground. The opening clip was of Ted Cruz saying that conservatives aren't the condom police during an Iowa town hall back in 2015, after being asked where he stood on making contraception available to women who want it. Now, at face value, I thought it was great to put the onus on men to take care of contraception and using protection, but Rafael Cruz didn't answer the question about what women who want to control their bodies should do to decide when and how they get pregnant. He ignored it.
And it's a great example of what happened with Republicans. When the war on women came up, Republicans would curl up in a ball and they'd say, "Don't hurt me." Jiminy Cricket, this is a made-up nonsense example. Last I checked, we don't have a rubber shortage in America.
Add that to the fact that once upon a time, he seemingly agreed with AOC, but nothing came of it either way, to perhaps work together to ban members of Congress from becoming lobbyists, saying, we can team up here as well. A simple, clean bill making birth control available over the counter. Interested? When she tweeted, psst, birth control should be over the counter, pass it on. Ted Cruz is a man who, during Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court confirmation hearings, referred to birth control pills as abortion-inducing drugs, as if birth control was a threat to religious freedom. This has something to do with the Supreme Court case of the Little Sisters of the Poor Saints Peter and Paul Home versus Pennsylvania. The Little Sisters of the Poor, Catholic nuns, had asked for an exemption from the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act that requires health plans to cover all FDA-approved contraceptive methods. And there's more where that came from when it comes to Ted Cruz and contraception. So when Supreme Court Justice Thomas calls into question the legitimacy of Griswold v. Connecticut, which protected the right of unmarried couples to access contraception, and Senator Cruz agrees with the underlying premise of states' rights in that regard, plus only 8 Republicans backed a bill that will codify protections for contraception access in the U.S. into federal law. And hashtag boycott Walgreens trended recently on Twitter after users shared stories of being denied birth control and condoms by pharmacists with a moral objection to their use. It's good to look back at what politicians have said on the record about contraception, especially when they may want to make another run to become president in the future. Because, as Abigail Martin, one content creator who shared their story about being denied access to her prescriptions, whether or not the use of contraception is for the sake of sexual activity, by the way, said, first they want us to stop getting pregnant and having abortions, and then they don't want to help us prevent that pregnancy. With that said,
Look, when I was in college, we had a machine in the bathroom. You put 50 cents in and voila! So yes, anyone who wants contraceptives can access them, but it's an utterly made-up nonsense issue.